Welcome to We Hear Her. I'm Erin Trenbeth Murray, and I'm here today with another amazing woman who is sharing her story and insights into life lessons learned. Hi, I'm Erin Trenbeth Murray, and happy to have you here today with the We Hear Her podcast for women who succeed. I am thrilled today to get to have Christina Chi, who has been a recent member of Women Who Succeed and has the coolest background because when I was reading her story, I loved hearing about her looking at what some of us would consider failures as true opportunities and pivots to the next level and stage. So let me tell you a little bit about Christina. She is the CEO of Databento, an on-demand market data platform. She formerly founded Domeyard LP, a hedge fund focused on high-frequency trading that traded up to $7.1 billion a day. Failing to earn a job after a Wall Street internship, Christina started Domeyard from her dorm room with $1,000 in savings about 9 years ago. By a series of accidents, Christina became a voice in her industry, contributing to the World Economic Forum's research on AI and finance, guest lecturing at dozens of universities, and teaching Domeyard's case study at Harvard Business School. She is grateful to be open about all of her mistakes and to help people turn theirs into opportunities. I love this part of her bio. It was so authentic. I must share it with you. It says, "No amount of therapy has squashed Christina's imposter syndrome, but she will always be proud of her nonprofit volunteer work." And she has an extensive list of committees and boards and all kinds of initiatives that she has been engaged in over the years. I loved that she says, "One weird fact about me is that she's never had a full-time job working for someone else." She says her first job was teaching piano, and she was doing that to save money for a car. She says, "I bought an old Pontiac, one of the ugliest cars ever made, and made it uglier by putting on anime stickers on it. I sold it for $500 to help pay for college." Today, she lives in Utah with a slightly upgraded car, her dog, and her family. After a 12-year career in Boston, she's spending this decade prioritizing friends, family, colleagues, and community. And so help me welcome Christina. Thank you for being here today.
Oh my gosh, what an intro. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's not that hard to give. I cut out so much because I wanted to, ask you some questions to learn more about you, but your background. What I want to start with is this level of resiliency and interest ability you have to pivot. Where did that come from? Did you learn it? Have you always been that way? Did you have a role model? Like, how did that get instilled in you?
No, so I think, just for me growing up, I think I was always a little bit of a perfectionist, both in school as well as like in my life. And I was so afraid of failure, just that concept of failing my classes, my homework assignments, things like that. Just, I don't know why. Maybe, I don't know if it's just a girl thing or if it's just who I am or something, but that was very natural. And I still remember even in college, by the way, the first time I got rejected from a job, I was applying to internships and, companies would say no to me. And
You're
I
like,
remember
wait.
yeah, the first time a company said no, I still remember that rejection as if it was yesterday, and I think a lot of people do when you apply to your first job and you get your first no. I don't know why that one sticks the most, like in your memory, you're like, oh, like people don't want me. But then like over time I've learned like, look, that's a natural part of the process, right? Pivoting and learning how to, improve, and getting rejected is totally normal. And and one thing I've learned by now is if you're not getting rejected enough, you're not putting yourself out there enough, and I think that's just one thing I've learned is like getting rejected is natural part of the process. And so even for my current company, yes, I run the company, but we get rejected by everyone. Investors reject us. We've had vendors who are like, no, you're not the right size for us. They don't want to work with us. Especially investors though, we don't want to invest in you. Right. And that's a really big, sometimes at first it was a big blow. I was like, oh, like what did I do wrong? What did I say wrong? What am I doing? But then over time you realize that's a normal part of the process. And after 100 no's, you get a yes. And I'm sure same with, applying to jobs, by the way, same thing, right? After 100 no's, you get that yes, or applying to college after a bunch of no's, some college says yes out there, and you just know that's the one. It's just meant to be. And I think that's the amazing part is now I just call it, I put it on a mountain. I have a mountain of rejections over here, and I just put that rejection on the mountain of rejections, and then just learn to move on. Learn, to take constructive criticism when I'm given it, and just keep going and refining and improving. For me, it's improving my startup pitch so that I can hopefully get an investor down the road. And so that's what I ended up doing, and learning to, accept those things and continue to pivot and improve.
I had a really good conversation with a friend yesterday about leadership in general. And we were dialoguing how important it is as a leader to be able to accept feedback. And certainly we're all good at giving, or we think we're good at giving feedback, but accepting feedback and having a mirror kind of put up in front of you can be pretty tough. It can sting a little bit, but it seems like I like your awareness that maybe it may still sting, I would assume, but you're able to cope with it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I try my best, even for performance reviews, when I'm talking to my colleagues. One of the more important things is that everything is always two-way, and that I hope that they would give me feedback before I give them any feedback. How am I doing? Is there anything that we should stop doing or start doing? Anything I can improve on? Whether professionally or even personally, if they notice anything. I think that's so important, just to be to have that open mind about where everyone has good intentions when they give feedback, I hope. And so just being able to take that and move forward with it, and know that, you're not going to improve overnight, but just it's a process. But yeah, I absolutely agree. I think every leader should, a part of being a leader, I think, is knowing how to take feedback and being open to other ideas,
That's tough. It's tough sometimes, don't you think, when you get win after win, when you get a series of wins and things are going so your way, you're like, I totally got this. And then all of a sudden, maybe I don't have it all the way, but.
Oh, for sure. All the time. I feel like, sometimes it's 2 steps forward, and then it's like 1 step back.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes it's 2 steps back, and then you have to just, figure out, how do we move forward from here, and what can we do better, and all the time. I mean, even for my company, we're coming up with different products and new ideas, and then we talk to the users, and that's one thing that's so important about, there's something in the startup world about being what's called lean, which is instead of just spending years building a product, and then you start selling it and you realize no one wants it, one thing that we can do in the middle is why don't we get feedback every step along the way, build an MVP that barely works, but get feedback along the way from potential users, and so that way, we know that we're building something that people actually want. And so even feedback from users, is so important. So yeah.
Well, tell me, let's back up just a hair. So you were born in China. Came to the States when you were 3. What brought your parents to the States?
Yeah, so 1989, after the Tiananmen Square massacre, actually, my parents decided, that they wanted, I don't want to say they wanted me to have a better life, but it is kind of true. I was born, and they wanted just, for me to grow up in a different environment. And so then they came over, and they ended up going to USU up in Logan. And so that's where I grew up, was in Logan. They waited tables at the Chinese restaurant. There's one Chinese restaurant at the time in the 90s in town. And so it was funny because after school I would sometimes go to that restaurant, and that was where I just hung out. The Chinese restaurant in town. And it was great because my parents, they didn't speak English at the time. And so it was a good opportunity for them to learn how to speak English, and to, I don't know, just get acquainted with life in America, which is very different, by the way, because they're from Beijing. Is such a huge, it's a very, very big city, very crowded. There's a ton of people. And then coming to Logan was
right.
It's you're going to the countryside almost.
For sure.
Not a lot of people. And even the fact that there's only one kind of Chinese restaurant in town, was culturally very shocking for them, right, to grow up. But yeah, so that was the environment I grew up in. And I'm just really grateful to, just the fact that, the government and the state were so supportive of us, being immigrants here in the U.S. And I've always felt very supported as an immigrant. I think that was one thing. And that was the only, like, it was the American dream, right? Now I'm able to start a company. I feel like the quote is like my parents, they crawled so I can walk, or they walked so I can, I can run or fly. And so, yeah, it really does feel like that.
Well, I think that it's interesting, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine that took incredible courage. I'm sure they had to have hit some, what in their minds, maybe failures or huge challenges to overcome. And that tenacious spirit and drive from them must have carried through to you.
For sure.
What would you say that one of them or both of them, was there any life lessons that they told you that you're like, oh yeah, that came true? That was absolutely what my mom said, or that is absolutely what my dad said.
Yeah, I think both of my parents have always taught me to stay grounded throughout my life, and like remember where you come from. And and I didn't even know this until I was older. They came to America with $50 of borrowed money and they had to return that money, and so they had like no money basically when they came. And that I had actually grown up on welfare. I didn't even know, by the way. When you're a kid, you don't realize any of this. Like all of my doctor's and dentist appointments were free, my school lunches were free. I had no idea, by the way. And that was the amazing part, was as a kid that I was able to be a part of society, and that no one ever gave me the shame or for growing up in that environment. And I think that's the one amazing thing about being in America, by the way, is like I feel like there's this almost like equal. I know it's not for a lot of people, but it felt like to me growing up that wow, I had these opportunities, and I think that was really great. So
do you think that's why you give back so much now?
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, because I there's a quote like, "Oh, I give back because I know what it's like to not have anything," and I know just and staying grounded as well, and making sure I'm a part of that community, right? And so yeah, you're right. I think even with my parents, it's funny because I remember with my current company, we got a term sheet last year, and I was so proud of it because it was like, it was like $20 million, and like, it was just huge, these numbers I've never seen in my life, and I showed it to my dad and my mom. And I remember both my parents were like, okay, but like, just make sure you don't forget like where you're from, and make sure that this doesn't change you. They were worried that I was gonna like, become some spoiled like rich kid or something. And so yeah, those are the things that they were more worried about. And they're like, yes, and make sure like, don't forget we have our game night next week, and like you're supposed to bring dinner, and like, that was what they cared about the most. Like the term sheet didn't matter. It was more about, are
you gonna be here next Thursday?
You're gonna be here next Thursday. Like you're supposed to be cooking that day. Don't forget. Like that kind of stuff.
Oh, your parents sound so cool. Like, congratulations. But okay, let's move. Like,
exactly.
The things that are real, that are important in life, and the true things, those values.
Yeah, they were like, make sure and like, don't forget, you got to hang out with my middle school friends, my high school, middle school friends here in Utah. Because I went to college out of state, but I did grow up here, and so making sure like, hey, hang out with your friends and like reach out to them and
connections,
talk to them and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay. And so I think that's one of the more amazing parts. It does keep me grounded, and just helps me. It's funny because outside of Utah, when I think about, because I'm in this entrepreneurship business world, right? And yes, I do have some friends who are, billionaires, who are from very wealthy, kind of crazy backgrounds. A lot of it's because our investors are also, some of them are really rich and famous and stuff. We have a lot of like celebrity investors as well, which is like I guess the biggest example, the Paula Ono, people like that. Where, nice. And I'm like, I'm from Salt Lake, and he's like, because he went to the 2002 Olympics was a really big deal for him, and but then here just like making sure all my friends are just like me. I hope we're all regular people. You know what I mean? Like none of us are celebrities or anything, and I love that. I like that it's grounded, and like yes, I could. A lot of people, when they become entrepreneurs, they kind of live in this new world, and they only have like famous friends and stuff.
Sure, you get swept away.
Yeah, you get swept away with it. But I try my best to just not. No, it doesn't really mean much.
Good for you. Yeah, well, that's good parenting right there. Tell me, so one of the things that I wanted to ask you is, what advice, speaking of middle school and high school friends, what advice would you give to young women that you wish someone would have just said, X or said Y to me that would have helped me to ease into my college life?
Yeah. For me, I was one of those people where I had no idea what I wanted to do at all. If you asked me in high school or middle school, like, hey, what do you want to do when you want to be when you grow up? My answer would change every day. Oh, I want to be an astronaut or a doctor. Or like, I don't want to do anything. I just want to be a mom. My answer would change like every day. And that was okay. And I think that just knowing, I wish that someone had told me that exploratory process and like, I don't know is an okay answer, by the way. Even in college, I didn't know what I wanted to study until like halfway through college. And then halfway through college, I didn't even know what I wanted to do until like I was about to graduate from college. And then, because I didn't get an offer from my internship, they didn't give me an offer. And so again, a failure, in a sense. And so my friend was like, why don't you just start a company? And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. So, just all these things just kind of came together in the end. But
out of your dorm room.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. With $1,000?
Yeah, I earned that from the internship. And so, I had that in my savings and I was like, well, you're right. I might as well just start something and do it on my own and see and of course, like, give yourself a timeline, give yourself a deadline because you don't want to keep on doing this and not make any money forever, And so, yeah, reality still hits you after a certain point, but you have to set yourself a deadline. And like, if it doesn't work by the end of the year, I can, go start applying to jobs again and go back I had gotten so many rejections by then from companies, and so just decided to start my own thing. So
I love it so much. Well, is there any last comments that you'd like to share with the women or young women before we wrap up?
Oh man, I guess one thing is there's no such thing as one career path for everyone. You can, yes, you could get a 9-to-5 job and be totally happy. You can start your own company. You can just travel the world. You can be a mother, a single mom, or, parent. And I think those are all amazing career paths. And there's nothing wrong with any of those paths. And I wish someone had told me that too, that there's nothing wrong with whatever path you take. Because I know, you see so many women out there who are doing very big things, whether in politics or in the arts or in sports, or they're influencers. And it's like those are cool paths, but they might not be for you, and that's fine. And I think life is continuously about exploring those paths, not just throughout high school or middle school, but even after college. Even for me as an adult, I'm constantly pivoting and exploring those ideas and figuring out, oh, maybe I want to write a book, during the pandemic. And then, so then that happened. I haven't actually published anything, but like ideas like that, just keep on coming up and just learning to keep an open mind about what could be next. So
I know you have to let us know when that book is going to get published. But I would like to thank you all for joining us today with Christina. I mean, you can see courage, bravery, flexibility, just amazing to me. I mean, the courage of starting the company out of your dorm room, but then that wasn't just like a one flash in the pan, that you continued with other adventures. You're still trying to grow and expand yourself. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it. Well, join us next time for the We Hear Her podcast for women who succeed. I'm Erin Trenbeth Murray, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you for taking the time to hear her. Join our efforts and learn more about women who succeed at womenwhosucceed.org. A big thank you to our sponsor, the Clark and Christine Ivory Foundation.